for hanging in right to the end. Has everyone had a great conference? Yeah, it's pretty lukewarm. Has everyone had a really, really great conference? Yeah. Still pretty lukewarm. Is this the best SharePoint conference everyone has been to this year? Yeah! And the Vegas night last night, everyone enjoy that? That's pretty lukewarm too. Anyway, so we've rounded up the smartest minds in the room, and we put them outside. Now we've got this outside. So this is the Ask the Experts panel, and also the final prize draw and final closeout for the conference. So, as I said, thanks for making it this far. We've got a couple of prize draws, so we'll do that first, just for the people that wanted to sneak out. Only kidding, if you leave, we will point you out. And then for the rest of the time we've got, we'd like to use this wisely. So if you've got some burning questions and stuff that you were too afraid to ask in the sessions, now is your opportunity. You've got 6 experts and probably a room full of people that would love to answer as well. Well, please keep your answers to yourself. It's these guys here. So we're going to use technology and just old school microphone. So if you have a question, feel free to put it on Yammer with #RCExperts. I'll be monitoring it, and if nothing comes through, I'll start making them up. But you feel free to get up here and actually use the microphone and direct them to our experts there. So without further ado, let's get our prize draws to start. We've got the guys from AvePoint. They're going to come up and use a complicated system of card draw.
So we're giving away headphones, and I'll get Paul to draw the lucky winner.
John Wright.
That's
exciting, or it could be very sad. So last night we had the Vegas night, which everyone was very enthusiastic about. We had the winning wheel, and this is the list of prizes, and we have 2 unclaimed prizes. So if Steve is here, and Steve, you have about a minute to get up here, otherwise we're going to give this away via random audience selection. Also, if Stuart Walk is here, same deal, we've got 1 minute to get up here, or random audience selection. We've got a 6 up.
Okay.
No, they're not here. Right, so there'll be random audience selection during the RC Experts for the best question. There you go, so you're going to have to ask a question now. So let's kick it off. Have we got a question from the audience? Someone who's brave enough to get up here and get behind the microphone? Talk to our panelists, possibly win a red box full of $10,000. You're on $10,000.
So my question is...
I'll get it right now, sorry. There we go.
So you guys have all been around SharePoint for quite a while, and obviously we don't know what the future's going to be about, but if you had to put on your hat and guess what the next version of SharePoint would be, and what features and functionality or anything, concepts, what would you say would be there?
Look at me. I think we're in a spot where Microsoft has said that the SharePoint has switched from being developed as an on-prem product that happens to work online to being an online product that happens to work on-prem. So I think part of what we're going to see is, what the question will be is not what features will we see, it will be what features won't we see. Because we're going to see these features develop in SharePoint Online for the next however long, and then they're going to take a chunk of that and crank that into on-prem. So I don't know exactly. I'm still trying to get my head around 2013. I haven't ventured that far, but I think that's kind of what we're looking at. Is we're seeing all these crazy things that are showing up in SharePoint Online, and just crossing our fingers and hoping that when we come with our little porridge bowls for SharePoint on-prem, the next version, then it'll have the cool things that we want. That's my guess.
Yeah, I definitely agree on how this is working. But they'll be testing things on SharePoint Online and things that work and that they can have on premises. Then we will see them. But again, personal opinion, I don't think that it's going to change drastically. I think we're going to see something similar probably to 2013, but with the added things that we're seeing on Office 365, and now more of a gradual, just a little bit more features and more frequent updates, but nothing major like we saw from 2007 to 2010, for example.
And Surf will work on Prime. Unless they carry it over from Office 365, then no.
What I'm hoping to start to see is that rather than SharePoint sort of being interesting because it was what everyone else was doing 3 to 5 years ago, it will start to move ahead of the market. Because I think this taking Microsoft away from the 3-year deployment cycle, and they're starting to roll out things much more steadily. I mean, we're seeing that on Office 365 for better or worse. But I think that they're going to be able to adapt to the market better. So rather than trying to drive the market like what they did with Windows 8, they tried to change the way people thought about a personal computer, and it didn't necessarily go so well. They're going to be trying to do both. They'll try to lead the market as well as react to the market in a better way. They haven't been able to do that very well in the past, the market reactions. So as their cycles are tighter, I think we'll see things that make more sense. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Looking at it from my unique perspective, dealing with the students themselves, they love the product, but they want to see more of a commercialization of it. They really want to be able to see, and I'm going to sound like a blasphemy here, they want to see it Googleized. They want to see it actually more web-based solutions to it instead of all of the different types of SharePoint functions that you have now. They just want it to seem to be more seamless in its use. And I think that's where they have to go. If they're really going to capture and keep and hold it market, it has to be more commercialized or consumerized, excuse me.
I see a lot of hybridization as well, and I hope you're not too married to the SharePoint name.
I guess it's my question is in two parts. Part one is around 2013 and 2015. If 2015 is going to be the actual version, that why is Microsoft trying to do it so early in faster releases, where customers could actually think of skipping a release? So there's that perspective, because people could have different apps, customized apps, whatnot. It may not be a good idea for them to frequently move that faster. The part B is around the info path. I really love info path. So what's the point of Microsoft to really kill it? If they are killing it now, is there a backup strategy whereby they will be even coming with a better solution, which I personally think could be there, whereby they are looking for some sort of a really sophisticated solution which will work on multiple devices, whether iPad, tablets, whatever. Do we have any idea about their new form technology roadmap?
Well, first of all, they didn't kill InfoPath. InfoPath is alive and well and will be for the next 9 years. And by the way, support, what does that mean? I mean, it's alive and well as long as you want to keep using it, right? It's going to work for you as long as it works for you. So I think that people have overreacted to that news. I think the nice thing about what Microsoft did with that news is they said, this is what we're planning. And that's unusual. They haven't done that in the past. They are working on some really cool new capabilities for forms. And think of forms as a very blurry, edgeless thing, because there's a lot around what people think of as forms that is not necessarily what we think of as forms. So I think you're going to see some really interesting things, and they're going to come soon enough that this little gap where people have been panicked about InfoPath will just seem like a blip in retrospect. So I didn't get the first one, so that I wanted to jump on the InfoPath part.
I think most of them are getting a faster releases cycle, so what's the idea there? Because we're paying maybe the
think that Microsoft is trying to push everything to the cloud. And they're saying that you're going to get the fastest, newest releases by being up in the cloud. So that's why the features and functions and new capabilities will always be released to the cloud first, and then will filter down to on-prem. At least that's everything they've been telling me.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of confusion around that messaging for a while. And they said there's going to be a faster release cycle. A lot of on-prem people were panicking, that we can't handle that fast. And it's been clarified over the last year. No, the quick release cycle happens in the cloud, and as Todd said, it's going to be consolidated and delivered in about the same periodic releases in terms of the major releases.
Well, part of what's changed, and to your point, that's a very valid question. You know, you've got enterprises who are slow to, you know, they have to test and all that kind of stuff. Every 3 years was burdensome, and then if they hear it's going to be more than every 3 years, then they freak out. Part of another thing that Microsoft has recently done is they've changed their patch cycle for SharePoint. So we used to get patches every even month. And so every other month we'd get this patch of whatever was supposed to fix problems, but also usually hysterically create new problems that we got to find. That was always a good time. All the while, our friends in Office or SharePoint Online were getting new versions every couple of weeks, every month, again, for good or for bad. But starting this month, Microsoft has said we're down to a monthly release cycle now. So there'll be on-prem folks will be getting monthly patches for on-prem. So if they want to follow the havoc of SharePoint Online, they're welcome to do so. But also part of what I think is going to happen is features are going to start sneaking into that, and that's been going on for a while. Just little things here and there. So hopefully that will help ease the upgrade, because you won't maybe have to go from a major version to a major version to get that little nugget you want. It might show up in the March 2015 patch or something. So we'll see. That's a topic that's near and dear to me. I've got a couple of blog posts that chronicle every patch for SharePoint, and the build numbers and what it does. So I'm very interested in how this next 6 months works out, the monthly patches. Because some people would argue that they don't test the bi-monthly patches often enough. And now we've got half as much testing time. We'll see.
But I think just to keep on that 2 seconds, we often, not complain, but we often comment that Microsoft is not fast enough to react. So we're always too late to change our environments. Can't keep up with the rest of the world in some retrospect. So it's good to have the option to be able to update. And if I don't want, like you said, the update, I don't have to install it. I can get the next one, test that one that accumulates all the other ones. So I have on premises, I have the choice to follow and take the ones that I want to get what I want. And like you mentioned, the updates will allow me to really just get what I want. And that's what I was saying earlier in the first question, that we won't see a major change or major update. We're just going to see little steps. The video portal, and then this, little pieces here, and integration with Yammer now. Add-ons, and not makeover and overhaul.
So we've got one for the chat rooms. It's a big one, so I'm going to break it down, make it easier. What is the one thing to increase user adoption? And I know that's will last for the rest of the conference, so maybe one thing per speaker. What would you say is your user adoption magic bullet, Weijin?
I'll start quickly with it because I just had a session recently on that touched a little bit on it. So it's a buzzword a little bit at the same time. Adoption can be impacted by many different things that you do with your SharePoint project. One thing that is very, very important for people to be able to accept is clear communication during the project. So if you can't show up Monday morning and you're not using file shares anymore, you're using SharePoint, there's not going to be a good adoption rate for sure. So we've been really successful by providing proper communication, launch events, inviting people to see what's coming, announcing it, elevator announcements, cafeteria announcements, lots and lots of communication, not just 2 emails and then it happens, a lot more engagement. And then of course, the big part of it was training. Video has become something a lot more popular. So we've been doing short 3-minute videos on specific topics in SharePoint. how to upload documents, how to tag documents, how to create a column, what is the impacts, and then we create this video portal if we want, so people can, on demand, get help that they need. So again, making it easier. So I think adoption isn't one thing that you do, it's just how you bring it to the people that are going to be using it, because there are people that have things to do, and it's not just changing Word version. It is a whole new way of working. It's no more file shares, it's metadata, it's web, and it's not always so easy for everyone, so it's important to ease them into it.
I think about it a little differently. I'm an iconoclast on the adoption thing. I think adoption is absolutely not the goal. The goal is to come up with a compelling reason for people to use a tool because it actually solves their problem. Okay? So trying to get people to use something that sucks is a waste of effort. Build things that people need. And you know, the failures are when people go into a room and they come up with this really cool new SharePoint launch, and they launch it, and then they say, well, why isn't anyone using this? They haven't talked to the people who actually do work. They haven't tried to connect it to the actual work process, yada, yada, yada. These are all obvious things, but it happens over and over and over again. I think the people who focus on adoption should turn it around and focus on what do our people need that SharePoint can provide. And then adoption goes away. It's not even a discussion anymore, because people start using it because it actually solves the problems. So that's the number one thing that I do.
Totally agree. Any implementation of SharePoint has to look at the way people are working. Does it immediately bring value to their job? Does it solve a problem? Can they rely on that solution to be there to keep solving their problem, to make their life easier in their work? That is a successful implementation. How do you get there? You have to look at how the people work, how they understand the work. Any IT implementation has to start by observing, almost observing them in their natural habitat. How are they in their cubicle? How are they working? What is the tool they need? Are they a mobile workforce? Are they a static workforce? Do they need a web version? How are you going to get that information out to them? Once you've done that and you can design your solution, you're going to have the magic user adoption, because now they can rely on your implementation, and they realize that that data is there, that information is there. That I have to agree totally with Mark. It's really the way to make sure that that is going to be used.
I think my advice, as an IT guy, my advice would be make it not suck. Because I've seen, to dovetail off of your,
It's odd that you agree with me.
yeah, it hurts me. It's as painful for me as it is for you. But I see a lot of well-meaning folks, again, you know, these committees come out, we're going to have this front page, and it's going to have links to everything on it, and we're going to have these videos, and the CEO is going to have one that auto-plays on the front page to get people excited, and the SharePoint experience sucks. And people go to it, and they're like, "Bleh." And it's even worse if, like, the URL is, you know, sharepoint.company.com, because then it just poisons the name for them forever. So having somebody, you know, that pays attention to what people do and sees what the pain points are in SharePoint and fixes it so it doesn't suck for them to use, that's a big thing.
So where I've seen it be successful, it depends on, first off, the organization size. The larger the organization, the different plan on the rollout. But I've been the consultant that comes in and works with the different teams. Where we'd end up, a group of us would end up meeting with different departments to figure out their pain points, figure out how SharePoint can help them, and not even talk about SharePoint, not even bring up SharePoint. Just figure out, like you said, what their process is, what their daily process is, and then to figure out how we can make their life easier in SharePoint, so that way we can implement something that's going to solve their problems to make life better. And that's where I've seen, you start where we'd end up having a group of people within each department where we kind of prototype certain things out for them, and then they see the value and see it visually and realize, wow, this is going to make our life a lot easier. So that when it does get rolled out, you don't even have to worry about user adoption, because their jobs are already becoming better.
I'm really agreeing with all of this, and to illustrate that, if you were to ask me what the best feature in terms of adoption in 2013 was, I'd say OneDrive for Business. And the reason that I think that is for, I don't know how many years, I've been trying to get people to put content into SharePoint, documents into SharePoint documents. This is simple document management, and there's a resistance. But now, they can be folders on your file system that are just folders on your file system, and they work, live, breathe like folders on your file system. It's that simple. Simple, 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 but you get to take advantage of all the versioning, all the basic document management capabilities in SharePoint. It's an absolutely compelling reason to go to 2013, because now it's not a burden on the end user to use document management. It just comes naturally, and you can synchronize. When I say OneDrive for Business, I'm talking about the ability to synchronize document libraries with your file system. I'm not necessarily talking about my site.
You make it sound like they screwed that up and made that confusing.
Once or twice.
You
mean the OneDrive? The brand
the other OneDrive for
What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to segue the last two questions together to a certain degree. The last question was about adoption and user acceptance and that sort of stuff. The previous question was about how in SharePoint 2013 you can choose our cumulative updates. The trouble is, in Office 365 world, you don't get to choose. Now, when I went to SharePoint Saturday in Brisbane, there was a lovely demo which failed because Microsoft, in their wisdom, changed something that weekend. And that was actually a system that they developed for a client. So how do we as solution providers combat that?
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, they're learning as they go. I think that's a fair way to put it. They understand, they being Microsoft, they understand that they need a better process in place. They're doing some things in the near term. I mean, you have what they call the first release capability, where you can sign up to have a tenant get things earlier than other tenants. So you get to see things a little bit more. So that's starting to move toward giving us test environments. That sounds good. They're trying to publicize the roadmap more so that you have some idea about what's actually coming. We had no idea what was coming until a month ago, right? It's still not perfect, and it's going to take a lot of work on their part, I think, to sort of find out what the right balance is. The fact that they're exposing a roadmap at all is very counterculture for them. So they're learning as they go, and they're trying to understand how do they need to change the way they work internally to make this work. So I think the promising thing is that they're listening, and they really are listening. I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago, 9 months ago, but I'm absolutely sure right now that they're listening to what they hear. They're watching for signals, or whatever the right way to put it is, and they're trying to come up with better ways to make this work.
Good feedback.
I see what you did.
I don't want to delve into that.
What? Microsoft listens to?
So, because adoption is such an exciting topic, we're going to keep with that. How do you feel the adoption rate of the apps model has been?
Sorry, what?
The adoption rate of the apps model, that's from the community group.
X model?
Apps.
Oh,
Apps model.
you want to take that?
I'll jump on that one too. Based on what I'm having, the conversations that I've been having with people, and people sort of come to me and talk about it because they say, "Oh, look, where you won." I'm like, well, I know I didn't win, and the app model is not me. But yeah, there's JavaScript in there, so that's cool. People are confused. They're still trying to figure out how the app model fits into what they do. In the U.S., I mean, actually was surprised the other day. You forget where it was. Everyone raised their hands and said they were on SharePoint 2013. I think the uptake is actually slower in the U.S., or at least based on what I see, there's still a lot more people on 2010. So the app model is something that they're looking at as, are we going to have to figure this out? This is scary, this is different. And it may actually delay their upgrade in a sense. The people who are on 2013 are trying it out, but a lot of them are on premises, so they don't have to go there. I had a client that said, we absolutely want to go all app. They fiddled around with it for a month and said, full trust, perfect. And they just didn't want to go through whatever pain or learning experience there was. So every organization is going to come at it differently, but it's going to be a learning experience. I mean, people are going to have to step up and say, this is a new way to do things that we're going to have to learn. You know, life goes on, everything changes over time, and if it's not the app model, it will be the next thing.
You know, one of the things that I'm finding and realizing though, that is a lot of people that are, organizations that are moving to 2013 don't necessarily understand the features, the new features you have and the capabilities you have, not realizing how much you can leverage just with even, and I'm not talking Office 365, just with search, content search, display templates, jQuery with display templates. I mean, a lot of stuff that you can accomplish without even touching I can't even speak English today.
Is that Kiwi?
Without touching Visual Studio and without having to write actual .NET code, custom code, right?
You can't get anything done that way.
You want to bet? Yeah. You're Mr. Client-side scripter, right? So there's just so much that you can do, but a lot of companies are still in the mindset of, this is how we did it in 2010. We did a farm solution, we did this, we did that, not realizing there's so much you can leverage now just out of the box without having to deploy an app. So I think there's a lot of that understanding, or things to figure out. The other thing is that we have, you know, we'll admit, right, some stuff in the app model is broke. And we have a great team of people that are now dedicated to fixing the app model.
It's immature.
It's immature.
Room for improvement.
But we have some of our fellow awesome, you know.
They've spun up a whole new team to make it work.
Yeah.
And they're working hard, and they are working.
And they are very.
We actually know the people who are on that team: Jeremy Fay, Chris Johnson, Sonia Kopp, whose name I never say right.
Nope.
These people are excellent people who we've worked with in the past, and I think all of them. I don't know if you know them, but they're great people, and they are pushing that organization really hard to get this app model to something that we can really use to get work done. And it's their job and their passion. I think their passion is the more important part. And you'll see changes to the app model very quickly based on the way people are reacting to it. So that's the good part. Whether people like it or not isn't the point so much as the fact that Microsoft is.
They have to.
Yeah.
They have to make it.
Can I stay with the app model as was brought up? One of the principles that I've understood that Microsoft have was to make SharePoint development more accessible. So it wasn't like you had to basically be a SharePoint specialist to be able to develop stuff now with this platform. So it's become very easy to put things up on the App Store. If you can write a bit of JavaScript and you can basically understand some fundamentals. But if you've ever been up on the App Store, it's actually the crap store. And there is one of the advantages of actually having a more difficult model to get stuff in through, like the traditional farmers, that there's actually been a barrier of entry, and now it's very easy. And so one of the downsides potentially is that we actually are lowering the bar of the quality of products that are out there. Is that a fair assessment?
You know, I'm not too worried about that for a couple of reasons. Number one, and this is off the IT Pro standpoint, so I don't know crap about any of this, but as an administrator, if there are bad apps out there, I can block them from my on-premises farm so they can go away. And I will tell you that as an IT Pro that has done upgrades from 2007 to 2010 and 2010 to 2013, there have been horrendously bad apps out there for years, long before the app model. Terrible things on Codeflex and terrible things on .NET that would just grind upgrades to a halt, that would break on-premises farms. But those things being, code on the server, they could do some real damage. Whereas now you have all these bad apps, but they can't really do any harm. I don't know if there's like any fart apps in the SharePoint App Store, like there is on Android and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, the amount of damage they can do is fairly contained. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's the whole point of the app model. That's why it exists. It's so that people can do that kind of thing.
To Office 365.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that came to mind, I thought about it at some point, because like we mentioned, the app model is this mystery thing that not everybody understands fully what they can do, what they can't do with it. And the thought that came to mind is, first thing we want to do is to stop torturing SharePoint. And it's really what we do to it is, all right, right, well, there's a document library. All right, let me stretch that out. Let me do that to it. And maybe it's going to do a CRM with it. And no, so every other platform, just because it's not called Microsoft, we leave it intact. We don't do these kind of things to the other ones. But it's called Microsoft, so all right, let's develop everything for it. And I love the concept and the theory of the app and what it's going to bring to us. But obviously, as we said, it's a little mature still. But the fact that I can have SharePoint where I'm going to have my documents and columns and whatever it's going to be, and then bring the apps like the video portal on Office 365 or the Power BI right now, these are examples of apps as well. And it's amazing and it's great that that's what I'm looking forward to in the future.
It should be said too that it's us SharePoint people who are scared of the app model, right? I'm a long-time SharePoint guy. I used to do a lot of development. I went to one of those early code reviews of 2013 where they were showing us the new app model. I went with our head developer, and that was where I decided I think I'm just going to be an architect now. But people who haven't been involved in SharePoint, there's a lot of people who didn't want to go anywhere near SharePoint development because it's so hard. They're not so scared of it anymore. It's just using stuff they've done all the way along. So it's ideally, it's increasing the audience for developers that could ultimately, when it matures fully, take a lot better advantage of the platform.
I'm going to ask one more question actually. Coming from the SharePoint background, I was recently asking the company to consider the Service Manager, which is a system center product from Microsoft, which has a UI on SharePoint, to see if that could fit us for the company. And when I evaluated that, I think that was one of the worst UI I've ever seen in my 20 years of experience, considering the fact that we are now talking about HTML5, CSS, REST API, and whatnot. And this is the latest version of the System Center Service Manager, also known as a help desk from Microsoft. And this is the latest version we're talking about. So I'm just wondering, do the different departments within Microsoft talk to each other? Because here I'm getting embarrassed as a SharePoint person to tell the company, oh, this is really something bad.
Yeah, so part of that is we have to remember that Microsoft is a big company. And we talk about monolithic Microsoft. Microsoft's doing this, Microsoft's doing that. It's what, 100,000 people? I mean, 100, yeah, now it's Nokia, now it's 130. So there's going to be some miscommunication. So, and I've done the Service Manager thing. I got pulled into one of those things because I'm a SharePoint guy, and they're like, oh, this is terrible. One of the things that I've seen as a SharePoint guy with the last couple of versions of SharePoint is Microsoft and other people starting to look at that as the platform now. It used to be IIS was the platform, now SharePoint's the platform. So for Service Manager, it feels like growing pains, like they'll get it fixed eventually. Because I think it's the first version that sat on top of SharePoint. And so they just didn't know what to do. They didn't have the connections. So hopefully it'll get better.
And for everyone that's putting stuff in the chat room, thank you for that. If we don't get to it, the experts will, answer it in their own time. That's so
Mark
great.
won't leave tonight until every question is answered.
That
is my promise to
He'll just
you.
make it up. So there's a question which I'm going to rephrase, and hopefully you'll understand my English. So with SharePoint, maybe the brand starting to be diminished, or maybe it's folding into something else. Office 365 is now being promoted, so what do you think the SharePoint brand is going to become, or is it always going to be important? Kind of how do you see it changing? What's it going to be called in the future, maybe? It's opening the
I
question.
don't think we know what the name's going to be.
Well, and I think that's kind of overblown a little bit. Not no disrespect to the person in the chat room, but I remember this discussion's been going on for like a year now, and I remember before the SharePoint conference, which was what, March, something like that. So for months leading up to that, we're like, oh my God, this is going to be it. They're going to tell us at the SharePoint conference, it's all going to go away, it's going to be this new name, and then nothing happened. They're like, look, it's Oslo. I mean, so I'm not so worried about that, and I don't think it's as eminent or as a big deal. Because again, we've been, wringing our hands about this for a year now.
Well,
The question really is, what's the fear? The capabilities of SharePoint are probably not going to go away because Microsoft makes a lot of money from those capabilities. So whether it's called SharePoint or Bruce, it doesn't really matter. They all have jobs.
I Bruce, yeah.
I was kind of hoping for Lou myself.
Luke.
But you know, I think you will see some, you're going to continue to see the communication change as SharePoint becomes more a part of, I mean, it's been a part of Office 365 for a while, but you know, you're seeing some APIs opening up across Office 365, for instance. So those APIs opening up tell you that that's being seen as a platform rather than just SharePoint as a platform or just Exchange. So you know, sometimes those APIs are telegraphing what's going to happen in other places. But again, the name doesn't really make any difference, right? As long as we have something to work on. In some sense, the SharePoint name has become a detriment because there have been so many bad SharePoint implementations out there. People say SharePoint sucks. And of course, we all know that we suck, not SharePoint, right?
There's a guy that owns the domain SharePointSucks.com.
Yeah.
And I tried to buy it from him just so I could put he would sell it to me. We found out it was a SharePoint guy who wouldn't sell it to me.
Was it Bjorn?
No. Some guy in Kansas City, I think. But yeah, I tried to, wouldn't sell it to me. Because I was like, this would be awesome.
Yeah.
It's becoming Lotus now.
That name's not used. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm still on the jet lag. Oh yeah, no, we were talking about the SharePoint brand. I'll just finish that 2 seconds. I think, as we said, it's not that important. I've thought about it, I've written a blog about it. It's just the brand, and we're already calling it differently. Many people, I'm getting questions through the blog or by email, and they're talking to me about OneDrive for Business, but they're talking about their document libraries. But it's just that they entered through the OneDrive for Business because they started with OneDrive and then just, so they're attacking different markets, different audiences to bring them, but the platform is going to be there. For the other people working with Yammer, when you create a Yammer group, it's going to create a SharePoint team site, but nobody's going to call that a SharePoint team site when they started from Yammer. It's just going to be a Yammer site, or it does not matter as much. It's just the expertise is going to be just as important. It'll still be SharePoint, but it'll be used as a platform. And whatever we choose to call it after, when we're going to be using Delve as the app or Oslo, the content is going to be in Yammer group sites, but that's going to be SharePoint, or it's going to be on OneDrive for Business, but that's going to be SharePoint. It won't matter as much. It'll still be the same technology, but the brand itself, yes, it probably is going through transformation, but I don't think we should hold on to it with dear life or anything of the sort.
It's the services, right?
Yeah.
So this is a two-part question, one for the audience and one for you guys. So you guys get to think while the audience gets to think. Audience, who would like a Epson printer in half a ream of paper, free from the conference? That's a serious offer. You guys think about it. And for you guys, what is the one underutilized feature or thing you'd like to tell someone about SharePoint? Because everyone knows everything about SharePoint, and there's always that one little thing like, you've got to use the thing.
I think my answer for that has been the same since SharePoint 2007, and for me, I feel like search. I really, and especially now in SharePoint 2013. That's why I jumped in first, because I knew. Every time I set up SharePoint for a big organization, I'm always like, I need to have somebody who, like, for 6 hours a week, plays with search.
Yeah.
Looks at the search failures, looks at the things that people search for, because search is such an underutilized piece of SharePoint. It does so many great things. Had one company who they set their portal up and people were searching for the lunch menu, but they didn't have a keyword defined for that, so it was giving them correct results. I'm like, set up a best bet. Have somebody who pays attention to search. And another part of that is, because of like Google and Bing, we have got ridiculous expectations for search. And Google is a company that's this huge and makes huge money making search work well and search results be well. And at your company, you've got like one guy who goes in and makes the search service make sure that it's working. And so people get frustrated with search. So having somebody pay attention to it and give them something back, I think, does wonders.
Yeah.
I hope I ruined this for all of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one that's upstream from that. It's content types. People don't use content types. They go and they build out an entire SharePoint installation and never touch the content type. And their search results suck. So you have to tie it in. See how you did that? Yeah. So understanding how to use the very basic and very important information architecture tools that are part of SharePoint right out of the box, and just use them, is something that people have never gotten good at across all the versions of SharePoint. So if would say if there's one thing you learn how to do better, it's content types. That brings you a lot of other capabilities that just make everybody happy.
I think one of the problems, though, is that companies think that they can just throw their stuff in SharePoint and expect to be able to find it, not realize, yes, search is phenomenal in 2013. I'm doing a lot with search, and I love it because there's work you have to do, but you can really refine it with result types and, with your content types, with display templates, even just using the search results web part and refine stuff, and using result source pages and things like that. I mean, you can really make a nice user experience. You can have specific metadata show up in your results for your item that gets returned, and then have the hover over with other metadata. And then you might say, based on this content type or this metadata, we want to use this display template. So you can have a very, very nice user experience with search rather than just having out of the box, or let me just go ahead and search for my documents and my content.
Well, that's it. I got nothing else to say.
See you next week, Ben.
I'll be completely predictable. It's only, SSRS, SQL Server Reporting Services in SharePoint integrated mode isn't used enough. It's amazingly powerful. It's incredible what you can bring and surface right within your SharePoint environment with it, and you can do it in an efficient manner that doesn't burden your SharePoint environment. So to me, SSRS integration isn't used anywhere as near as much as it should be.
Document sets and document IDs, I think, don't get used enough because of limitations. So like, the fact that the document ID is scoped in weird ways. And
document ID is per site connection. So you can actually have duplicates of document IDs. So
yeah,
in multiple sources.
Yeah. I think they were both really good ideas, and people see them like, oh, that's great. They just start looking into it and like, oh, really? I think you can do this. So I think that's the problem.
I think document sets are awesome.
You are wrong.
And they're part of that information architecture. It's a way to build out some interesting content containers that people don't really take advantage of. You can do a lot more with them than people are aware. That's custom front pages and things like that.
And information architecture is very important. Same with governance, which a lot of companies don't. It's a bad word to them, or they said, oh, wow, we have all this work we have to do. I think a lot of the upset is that they say, well, this is our budget. They don't realize that if they don't do the information architecture and figure out their governance and all that stuff, they're going to have a lot more post-cleanup work when they realize all these pain points if they didn't do these beforehand things in the first place to make sure that your information architecture is going to be the best way to really utilize SharePoint and for setting up your search and all that other stuff.
I'll just be redundant. I think it's search. It's absolutely search.
Say that right. Yeah.
Pick a winner.
So there was a serious offer for people that printer on their desks at good home, and half the regular paper reporting. It's yours. Thank you. One Place Solutions, they gave these away last night, and no one came and claimed them, so we've given them away again. So if I'd love the assistance on the...
Anna?
Is there a name on it?
This is probably better than mine.
And the winner is Julian Gary.
Is
He
it
went to
Gary?
my session and gave me all zeros?
Julian, that's $10,000, also known as $50 voucher.
The conversion rate's terrible on those things. It kills you.
Right. D. Hines?
D. Hines? Or D.I. Hines?
D.I. Hines? There we go.
All right, guys, well, thank you very much. We're almost at the end of the conference. If there's a book on your chair, please take it with you. If there's a book beside you and no one there, take that too. In fact, take all the books you can find. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. This has been a fantastic couple of days. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
See everyone next year. Tell all your friends, tell all your family that you get a SharePoint. It's not going away anytime soon, apparently. So it's been great. Cheers, guys.